Who has the most overrated home field advantage? Who is it? Because we constantly hear about how some of those teams in the Northeast, how it's terrifying to play there. Ooh. I don't want to go to Boston and have racial slurs thrown at me. It's okay. I can say that because I'm from there. Same thing with, I don't know, Philadelphia probably. New York. Oh, forget about it. 27 rings. Could you handle that? I generally think there are some crowds who actually can have an impact on a game. I think that a lot of them are in college football, but home field advantages at times is played up in a way that it shouldn't be. So for this game on Sunday between the Philadelphia Eagles and San Francisco 49ers, you have, of course, just like we did during the World Series between the Astros and Phillies, the Astros literally being booed to smithereens over the entirety of the last 3 years. Oh, they're going to go to Philadelphia, find a bunch of bandwagon Phillies fans, and all of a sudden they're going to piss their pants. Stephon Diggs, excuse me, not Stephon Diggs. I got Stephon Diggs on the mind. Deebo Samuel, who I like, wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, was asked about that loud Philly crowd. Here's what he had to say.
We know it's gonna be loud, but no stadium is as loud as ours. But at the end of the day, they're at home, NFC Championship. They're gonna be all riled up, and it don't really too much. We don't really too much feed into all that. We put the pads on and just go to work.
It's BS that the 49ers crowd is the loudest that there is. That's wrong. But here's actually some evidence as to who an actual tough crowd to play in front of is. Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan both said yesterday that the 49ers used Week 15 at Seattle to prepare for a possible playoff game at Philadelphia, which is pretty ballsy to think about because, of course, this is a Week 15 game on the road,
and Brock Purdy's making his third start.
Right. That is a very cocky thing to believe, and I don't even believe that so much. But what I will tell you, in yet another pander to Seattle, but one that I honestly believe, no NFL stadium is louder than the Seattle Seahawks stadium. I have been to many of them. That place is loud. I think part of it has to do with the actual architecture of the stadium. The other part has to do with the fact that they are one of those fan bases that will constantly cheer, and they're not booers. I think Denver has a great home field advantage in the NFL. I don't think people talk about that place enough. Imagine you throw an incomplete pass and the crowd starts chanting, incomplete. I think it would get in your head after a bit. I think those are probably the two best home field advantages in the NFL. That's just me. I haven't been to every single stadium, but Philadelphia is put up on this pedestal. And it's funny because Philadelphia fans are more dangerous to their own teams than they are to the opposition. Sure, when Philadelphia is into it, they're into it. But this is not going to be that much of a home field advantage on Sunday. You know why? Because Philly is not hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Philly only gets up for something when they hate it. That's it. It's not to say it's a bad sports town. I think it's a pretty good sports town. But I also think that they are put on this pedestal as this terrifying fan base to play in front of. They're like every other northeastern city in my book. Maybe a little bit less creative and witty than Boston, Maybe a little more trashy than everybody in New York. Although that's saying something. Anyway, I think Philadelphia's crowd is the most overrated in sports, and we found that out in the World Series. That was a storyline. And it goes to show you, we really do need more people who are actually on top of not just every single thing going on with baseball teams across the country, which is difficult when you have 162 games to determine, but also somebody who has a good feel for the actual vibes of every single baseball stadium out there. And it's tricky because how many sports writers are actually going from place to place to place in a sport where, people don't really care that much about national stories, So I think that Philadelphia's got the most overrated crowd that there is. But let's hear what you guys have to say. 713-780-3776 to call in. Twitch.tv/ESPN975 or on Twitter @Gallant says, Ted Moore tweets, the LSU on a Saturday night myth. I also think we got a Twitch comment from Texan Matt about LSU, Death Valley, isn't that intimidating of a place to play in? Well, I would agree based on the fact that LSU has not been particularly successful over the last couple of years. That home field advantage, I think, is more a fun experience than an intimidating experience.
And they basically have to. It has for it to be a good home field. The kickoff has to be after 7 o'clock.
Right. That's weird.
They just do not do. They get upset when they have to play the 2:30 game, CBS game. They need that extra 4.5 hours to tailgate.
Well, and some of them don't show up. That's the other thing that you don't think about. How many fans don't go to an LSU night game because they passed out in the parking lot? Sean's laughing. Serious question, though.
I mean, it's an unanswerable question.
I mean, there's probably a lot.
This is the forgotten people who get left behind, that the system forgets. You're like, what about all those unconscious cold bodies in the parking lot of LSU football game?
By the way, there was a viral video of a Bills fan that got super hammered and crawled into a covered trailer.
Oh,
truck.
yeah, and the truck bed.
And the guy got back to his house, and the person started knocking on the top of the truck bed because I guess he had crawled in and fallen asleep in it.
And he woke up in the driveway of someone else.
I mean, you know what? That I think is a card in favor of Bills fans. I think Bills fans are very good fans. I think they're perhaps a little bit too loved by everybody.
I was gonna say I think they're good but overrated.
I would agree.
They get the love of number one fan base, and it's well, you just lost by 17 at home in a snow game.
And some people were leaving as that ended. And look, here's the other thing too. A lot of fan bases are overrated. A lot of them are.
Yeah.
A lot of them are. I mean, I would point to Boston sports fans. Patriots fans have become cake eaters. And I mean, it's quiet in Gillette Stadium. It is quiet.
That is the issue with too much winning. Is that the same thing happened to the Warriors even before they moved stadiums?
But they priced them out. You're right.
Even before they moved to Chase Center, Oracle by the KD part of their run was they're just so used to winning. It's hard to be loud all the time. And like you said, they price people out.
Most overrated fan base in sports. Sean is right about Warriors fans taking a big nosedive. Bunch of people have commented, twitch.tv/ESPN975 and on Twitter @Gallant says Yankee fans. Yeah, it's not as intimidating as it maybe used to be. And I think that Yankee Stadium was intimidating because of the team that you were playing against in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. Also, the new stadium.
Stadium.
It's a little bit of the Warriors, where it's without all the winning.
You know what?
It's just a worse stadium.
The new stadium thing, it does something, and I think that you mentioned the pricing out part of things. The old stadiums do seem like they were louder. Everyone talks about how the Boston Garden, where the Celtics used to play when they were winning all of those titles, was just basically filled with cigarette smoke and fog,
no AC.
essentially, no air conditioning, and it was loud because it was a really dense, small arena. Yeah, that's a legitimate one. But then they move into the new place, which is a beautiful place, even though it's 25, 30 years old or so, and it's different when you go to the new stadiums. It's a shame that the new stadiums actually make it a worse fan experience from a sitting and watching the game. All the things that you can do instead of watch the game are great, but I do think that a lot of these new parks, Foxborough Stadium, where the Patriots used to play, where poop was coming out of the sink legitimately all the time. It was disgusting. The most disgusting place I've ever been. Metal bleachers with no backs on them, but it was loud. The new place is not loud at all. And the part of that's a byproduct of the fans, but the other part was, I think, byproduct of the way that the stadium was built. We obviously saw during the World Series that Philadelphia's crowd is way too played up, and we've kind of heard from the San Francisco 49ers that they look at Seattle as a more intimidating place to play because of the noise than Philadelphia. Look, if you're throwing ice on the field, does that really provide an advantage? Overrated home field advantages is what we're talking about here. And I just think that Philadelphia's place has a lot of cool stories about it. I don't think, though, that necessarily means that it's one of those places where it's impossible to win. Remember when the Eagles would have one of the best records in the NFC, host the NFC Championship game, and then puke themselves like that? That was a thing for 4 years in a row until they actually got to the Super Bowl. They lost to the Panthers at home. The Panthers? They lost to the Bucs at home. That was a little bit more understandable, but and they're going to say in response to that. Oh, but Donovan McNabb. Okay, you lost to the Seahawks a couple years ago. Like, it's not that intimidating of a place to play in.
It's a great like city and great like fan base, very
great
passionate
fan base,
but like actually in the stadium, it is like you said, like places like Seattle, like the architecture leads it to be louder.
Philly Stadium does have some architecture things that are similar to that of Seattle's, where it's supposed to keep the sound in the stadium, and it can get loud. But I'm telling you, these people will only get up for things that they truly hate. The Astros did not qualify for them. They don't care about baseball. Philadelphia is not a baseball town. They act like they are. They act like they're this great fan base. They were in attendance? 18th in attendance last year. Like, they don't actually care that much. So I just want that out there. And I would say that Philadelphia is towards the top. But some comments from you guys. Green Bay's crowd is overrated, says King of Twitch. The Utah Jazz place is ravaging porn stash. Paul, I shaved the mustache. This person keeps asking me that question too about the two like Fox 26 news anchors. I already answered it. Okay. Anyway, fans are quiet at Minute Maid Park, says Todd the Show. But I think the El Tiempo margaritas are a good start to getting the fans a little rowdier. That is such a great point. And listen, far be it from me to promote boozing it up at a sporting event, but I mean, even if I were going to cover an Astros game at Minute Maid Park, I am going to center field to hang out with my homies and probably get myself an El Tiempo margarita for $30. Thanks, Joe Biden. I'm going to go up there and I'm going to get at least one. We need more El Tiempos at Minute Maid Park. There are currently 2. There is one on the third baseline. There is another in center field. That is not enough. We need one on the first baseline as well. We need one up in the bleachers behind home plate. We need them everywhere. You see, people, sometimes the Minute Maid crowd park, it is a little bit, the Minute Maid Park crowd, it is a little bit too quiet. You guys, I know you're getting into the same phase that I, as a Patriots fan, got into, where everything, if it starts to get a little shaky, you're perhaps not on your A game. We need more El Tiempos at the park, but to step your game up as well. But no one's saying that the Astros is an overrated home field advantage. It's just a fun ballpark experience because we're very polite and kind Texans, unlike that Philadelphia scum.
I think part of it is also like part of it goes into who gets rated, like who gets overrated. You have to kind of get the like, oh, don't want to play in Minute Maid Park. No one actually says that.
No one says that.
No one says that.
You don't want to play the Astros, but
yeah, you don't. That's the biggest thing. It's like the team on the field is the scary part.
Before we shift into what we heard from the owners of the Texans and the Astros last night, I do have to raise a question. And I know some of you guys aren't about it. So I'm just going to say I'm doing this with a lot of hesitation. And I spent a lot of time thinking about whether or not I wanted to ask the question. Because someone sent it a comment that was for Texas A&M Aggies baseball with the ball 4 chance that they do when a person starts throwing a million balls in a row. That is intimidating, but this is the question that you don't want to have asked at you. Is the Texas A&M Aggies football home field advantage all that? And I'll say, that's a loud place to play. It is a very cool experience to be a part of. I'm not dumping on it, but I think that Aggie fans have put themselves on this impossible to reach pedestal. You're the 12th man, right? You have to be on it for every single game. This past year, you weren't. And I get it. 5-7 is a disappointing season. I would not tell somebody to go watch an inferior product. However, I mean, where were you guys for the UMass game? Where were you guys for a lot of the games? It was a down year. I get it. But you guys have billed yourselves as the one who show up no matter what. And then you didn't. So
don't do that.
Sean, I am merely asking the question. You can stick up for the Aggies if you want.
I will. You cannot question the 12th man, the long tradition of the 12th man.
I don't know. The 12th man I respect is the one in Seattle that pays for the rights to also call their fans the 12s.
Yeah, they pay for it.
Right.
This is about love. They don't have to pay for it.
But the Aggies trademarked it like a bunch of losers. No offense.
A bunch of lawyers.
listen, I get it. When you haven't won anything except for like those titles that like 30 other teams claimed the same year, like 1938 and 1942. Like I get it, okay? But what I'm trying to say here is
You're disrespecting the Aggies.
the
I got it.
trademarking the 12th man's kind of lame. And
Guess what? When Bobby Petrino turns around that offense, you're not allowed on the bandwagon. I'm calling it.
no, I'm already on the bandwagon.
Nope,
I'm
not
on
allowed.
the bandwagon because they have Bobby Petrino.
You
but
just got kicked off.
No, I'm not off. I'm not off. You can't kick me off.
Nope.
I am the Bobby Petrino bandwagon. I am all about the Aggies being villains.
It's like being a fan of a player, not the team. You're a fan of the offensive coordinator.
Sean, there is no bandwagon right now based off of attendance down the stretch. These people didn't show up. 12th man. TextX.com. Let's write things that would probably get us fired from our jobs. Thanks for creating that, Billy Lucci. Hashtag iRoll. Someone said, hey, if you go to any game in New Orleans, your car might be stolen. And Sean Mapes said one of the funniest things I've ever heard in the commercial break. So you need to share
It's
with
the
class.
opposite of a home field. It's almost a motivational tactic at that point. It's like when Hernan Cortez burned all the boats when he landed in the New World. No way back.
That's incredible.
Got to fight hard.
Listen, New Orleans is fun. And I think that the people saying that LSU crowds are overrated, okay, maybe because the night games, you're going to have a lot of people that pass out in the parking lot. But I do think that Louisianans go hard. And if we're talking about the entire southeast region of the United States, Louisianans are the one that I'd least want to mess with. I think Texas is not in the southeast, but that's neither here nor there. I feel like baseball doesn't have that many really intimidating home field advantages. You know, we mentioned the Yankees. Boston can be, but they have to get up for it, and that's a fan base that's kind of tuned out at this point in time. The Mariners one actually might be a good one. All the Astros players were saying afterwards, Ryan Presley in particular, I think last week said that the Mariners' home field advantage was the toughest place that they played last year. I don't know if that's just a Seattle thing, but in my experience at Seattle sporting events when everyone actually showed up, they do show up. A lot of other flaws with that city, but I do think that the sports fans care a great deal. And they're not like the kind of fans who are going to stab their team in the back either.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with the Yankees, and I was also was thinking about the Mets. But the Mets are like, when things start to go wrong,
they don't boo. They groan.
They don't boo. Also, they don't try to support the team. Like they don't try to lift up the team. They're very defeatist. I feel like they're just like, oh God, this is where it all goes wrong.
Yes.
Like they get in on it almost.
I agree with you there. You know who could be good? Problem is the team always stinks. Jets fans could be good. I do think that the Jets are louder than the Giants, and I think it's not even close.
Yeah.
I think Jets fans give way more of a bleep about football than the Giants do. No offense to the Giants fans out there. I feel like the Giants have had it like pretty awesome for these last couple of decades, even with the one decade where they were terrible for the entirety of it. Because they had the two Super Bowls before that they won with Eli bleeping Manning at their center. Anyway, overrated fan bases, that conversation remains on the table. 713-780-3776. Let's go to Ryan. Ryan, what's up, dog?
What's going on, Paulie? So what about L.A.? Don't they stab people in L.A.?
Well, they do that. I mean, look, we're talking about the in-arena experience. Generally, all the bad stuff in L.A. happens at the parking lot. You know, this kind of goes to show you why at SoFi Stadium they decided to not have tailgating before the national championship between Georgia and TCU. I think they probably thought to themselves, we've had a lot of this over the years. We don't want it. But when you're in the arena, I mean, it's a California crowd. I mean, I'm not even sure that Lakers fans are honestly like ever thought of as being an intimidating crowd to play in front of, you know? Appreciate that phone call, Ryan, though. It's nice to bring up LA every now and then. They're intimidating when you're in the parking lot.
Also, I think Dodgers fans in particular,
yes,
they're intimidating for other fans.
Yes.
For the other spectators.
Yeah, that's
They're
fair.
not so intimidating for like the actual players.
Right. I think a lot of times when we talk about
Same thing with Debo Samuel. Maybe that's what Debo Samuel's saying. He's like, I'm not scared of Philly fans.
No,
What
you're
are they
not
gonna do,
walking in
boo
the
me?
crowd. Exactly. You know what, Sean? That's a great point. We've said it a little bit earlier in a different kind of way, but yeah, some places you go as a fan, good luck. But does that mean that the players playing there are at a disadvantage? And I know some people have brought up the story about how I think it was a Philly fan who may or may not have broken the water at the hotel the Giants were staying at, so they couldn't shower or something like that. At least that was the allegation, and that wouldn't be that surprising. But once we're talking about the actual in-arena experience, for the most part, a lot of these places are thought of a lot more highly than they actually should. 713-780-3776 to call in. That's also how you text into overrated fan bases. You can also join us on Twitch, twitch.tv/ESPN975. We did get a couple of comments, too, about our NBA conversation and LeBron having fans thrown out of arenas. I feel like LeBron has had more people thrown out of an arena than he has championship rings. I don't think that's accurate, but it's close. I think it's because I don't think that guy got thrown out. I think it's 2 people thrown out where it's become a big deal and 4 championships, right?
Yes. Oh, it's definitely 4 championships, right? No. Wait.
Yeah, it's 4, I think.
2 in Miami. Yeah, it's 4.
Right.
And then, at least 2.
One with an asterisk, the one with the Lakers, because there was a bubble.
Yes, but 1 asterisk on the fan getting thrown out because it's Indiana. So, like, what do you expect?
That was the girl who made the pouty face emoji on the way out.
The Heartland.
What's up?
If you get a Heartland fan kicked out, doesn't really count.
Yeah, I agree. What did he say? What did he say? Was he polite? Was he too polite? I hope you come back to Indianapolis, and I hope you leave a nice Yelp review. I hope you tweet about how everything was so centralized.
Also, like, all the, like, Indiana, OKC, Utah, it's like, come on. You're going to kick those guys out.
Well, Utah, I get it.
This is their night on the town. This is the only time that they can go to downtown and do anything.
Utah is something else. Utah is really something else.
Yeah, Utah, the home of my favorite Russell Westbrook fan interaction.
Oh,
where he was getting into it with a fan, and then this is caught on video, and he kind of got in trouble for what he said. He said, "I'm gonna f you up." Yeah, that's right, you and your wife.
Whoa.
Some dude.
Kinky.
Some dude and his wife. He's like, yeah, I'm going to F you up. You and your wife.
Jeez. Okay.
And people are like, Russell Westbrook threatened to beat up that man's wife.
Damn.
Not really, but.
And your wife. Like your wife afterwards.
I just want to think that the wife wasn't also heckling him. She was just like, what?
I don't know. It is Utah.
What am I going to get beat up for?
No, it is Utah. They don't have anything. They don't have caffeine. They don't have alcohol. So they got to do something to lash out. You know?
Gotta lash out at Russell Westbrook.
I could go down this rabbit hole with a lot of other regions in the world, but anyway, let's sometimes these areas they lash out because they don't get to do the things that we get to do. It's nice to do the vices. It's great.